Okay, so this one is about the nature of greed. Now, and if you've been listening to my podcast for any amount of time, you'll know that I often talk about the brightest light being contained within the darkest shadows. And this is a classic example of this because greed is not what you think. Greed is, there's so much shame around greed. And in fact, that's the issue, is that human beings are intensely ashamed of being greedy. And so I'm just going to rip the band-aid off now and let you know that greed is the deepest desire of your soul. It's the deepest essence. Greed. And meaning intense and selfish desire. Intense and selfish desire. Notice selfish. And, the sooner that we reconcile this as a species, the better, because so many of the issues in the world are because we mask this truth. And that truth is that every desire we have is selfish. Every desire. There is no part of human nature that is in servitude to another human being. There is no part of a human being's nature that is obligated to another human being. Even parents of children, and I'll explain that in a second. I know it doesn't sound like it makes sense right now, but we carry so much shame about this. And what you'll find is that many of the most prolific activists and, people who are fighting the fight for the people are doing so in resistance to this truth within themselves. And that can be, a narcissistic expression rather than something that's coming from, authentic desire or inspiration. That's not to say that all activists are like that. It's definitely not the case, but it can manifest itself like that. So the issue we have, and greed is a classic example of the darkest shadow contains the brightest light, because we don't want to go near greed. We all look at greed and say greed's bad. Greed is the top 1% of the wealthiest people in the world. That's what greed is. And that's actually not about desire. That is not a manifestation of greed. That's a manifestation of resistance to powerlessness. And people who are driven to accumulate more and more and more wealth, it's not driven by the desire of your soul. It's driven by the fear of being powerless or insignificant, or so that's nothing to do with desire. Desire means the desire of the soul is for what it wants to create, how it wants to express itself. It's nothing to do with accumulation of wealth. So what would happen if I just flipped the switch and every human being on the planet gave themselves permission and accepted the truth simultaneously, that every aspect of their fulfillment as a human being can only come from the acceptance and the knowing and the understanding that everything that they ever want is a selfish desire. That they will never have the desire to be of service to someone else. They will never have the desire to be in servitude or to be obligated to someone else. This is the nature of your spirit, of your soul. It does not want to be obligated or tethered in any way, shape, or form. Its nature is that it's totally liberated and free and untethered. And so the sensation of it being bonded to anything is unbearable. And some of you might be thinking, well, I do want to help other people. Well, let me help you understand why you may think that. That's because all of us have different desires, but they're always selfish, intense and selfish. And the soul is driving to realize and to express its desire. Now, that desire may be, I'll give you an example of, let's say someone is severely disabled and they need someone to care for them. The parents often feel obligated to care for that child, yet the desire of their soul is that parent wants to pursue a career as a ballerina. They feel obligated to care for the child because they're its parents. Meanwhile, there's a person, down the road who is obsessing over caring for people with special needs, is writing theses about them, is experimenting, is trying to innovate, trying to establish projects to help people receive more care. Their soul is driving them to provide care for people who are disabled. That is a selfish desire. It's purely greed. An intense and selfish desire. You're expressing your nature. It's not about being in servitude to disabled people. It's selfish. And meanwhile, we're in a society where you can have someone severely disabled born into a family, and the sense of obligation of the parents means that their soul can never express its true nature. It can never fulfill its desires because of the crushing sense of obligation. And, the inevitable breeding of resentment that can't be avoided when you're that trapped. So this is what we need to understand as a species, is that all of nature is evolving to meet an unmet need. All of it. That includes human beings. Human beings have evolved to develop free will. And so we can reject our nature. We get to choose to reject our nature. It's still there, but it exists as latent potential. It's untapped. Most of us haven't even activated it, but we're getting thoughts about it all the time. But that most of us are rejecting because, we have to pay the bills and care for children and all that kind of stuff. But the key that will unlock total fulfillment in your life is to give yourself permission to accept that you are driven by greed. Every human being that has a soul is driven by greed because the soul's desire is selfish. It's about its own experience. It's about what it gets to experience, not about giving. Human beings feel good about giving because it negates the guilt and shame they have about being greedy. Oh, look, I'm giving. Look. Oh, look, I just gave something to someone. Look at me, I'm giving. I'm not greedy. I'm selfless. And that's not to say that giving to other people is a bad thing either. All I'm saying is that, and that's a very small percentage of people as well. Most of us give to others because we're touched by someone. We see someone homeless in the street and it touches us, and the inspiration arises and we want to give. But if you're finding the desire, that's an internal thing. You don't need other people to know that you've given someone a homeless person some money. But if you find yourself giving a homeless person money and then putting it on Instagram, you're wanting to be seen to be giving. That's a completely different thing. And again, this is not to discourage people who post photos on Instagram of giving to people. I'm just helping people to understand the drive and the motivation for things. Greed is not something to be ashamed of. It's something to be embraced. And the more you feed that greed, the more satisfied you become. But, understanding that the desire of the soul is insatiable. It cannot ever be satisfied because part of its nature is to become. And that means that whatever I am now, I want to become more. Whatever I'm experiencing now, I want that to become more. I know that I'm capable of becoming anything and everything. So how can I become even more? That is a state of endless pursuit of satisfaction. So I understand greed just is. It just is. But we've misconstrued greed. We've misconstrued, the accumulation of wealth for greed, when in truth it's about control. It's not about fulfilling desires at all. It's about, resisting. It's about resistance to being powerless. Resistance to feeling insignificant, or, resistance to feeling threatened. The bigger you can become, the less small you feel. So this is the nature of greed, and the best thing any human being can do is to give each other permission, and yourself, to be greedy. Bare your soul. Reveal the nature of your desire, what's driving you, how do you want to express yourself in the world. And in terms of us being able to thrive, but also care for each other in the same way. Understanding that caring is also a selfish desire. The desire to care for another is fulfilling an impulse within you. Nothing we ever do is for someone else. And this is what love is. It's actually about self-love. By giving ourselves permission to express our nature, to express our desires, to pursue more and more and greater ways to express our nature and fulfill our desires, everyone's needs just get met along the way. Like the person who's obsessing about caring for people with disabilities. They'll meet the unmet need because they're just following their nature, because they're obsessed. And they'd love nothing more than just to be in an environment where they get to care for people with special needs. And, there are millions of jobs that many of us would look at and go, oh, never in a million years. There are people obsessing about those jobs as well. Anywhere where you see innovation in an industry is driven by inspiration. Meeting an unmet need in the process. There are people who are getting thoughts about all this stuff all the time. They're getting excited about realizing the potential of a vision that they're receiving in relation to that job. And don't get me wrong, there are many, many, many people doing jobs that feel oppressive and are going against the grain. And that's only because they haven't unlocked their latent potential, and that lies within the greediness, the greediness of the soul. Remember, I know some of your skin will be crawling as I say the greediness of the soul, but understand the essence of the word. Intense and selfish desire, and that is just the nature of the soul. It is not concerned with the soul of another human being being expressed. It's not concerned with the desire of someone else's soul, because it knows it has no power, no influence, solely focused on selfish desire. And so my hope is, if you're listening to this podcast, that in some way you're able to give yourself permission to be greedy and to share with people what that insatiable desire within you is. It'll change, of course, and morph. And once you have one experience, you'll want another one. But this is part of the eternal, perpetual nature of our existence in this reality. So I just want to give you another example, because I'm involved in a project called Powerhouse, a project called Morpheus, and it's about, Powerhouse is an e-commerce platform, a collaborative one, and marketplace, and Morpheus is a collaborative incubator where people can collaborate on projects together. And people make the assumption all the time that, who did you make this for? Who did you create this for? What a great gift to give, to be able to give people and to help people and all these things. And of course, it seems that way. But it's driven by greed, my own selfish greed. The whole thing. Just a few weeks ago, we were having a session with a marketing company. And they were saying, well, who is the target customer and what is the problem that you're trying to solve for them? And I didn't make it for someone else. I made it for myself. I made it so that I could fulfill my selfish desire to become totally free of obligation to anyone or anything by simply following my nature, by expressing my uniqueness, by expressing what I'm inspired to express, by sharing my gifts, the gifts I want to share. That's all this is about. That's all this is about. And in order for me to do that, I had to create an e-commerce platform that's collaborative, and I needed to create a structure of running an organization that enables me to share my inspiration, share my vision, share my perspective, that enables me to receive and benefit from the success of that organization, but also means that I have absolutely no obligation to that organization, and it has no obligation to me. I'm not obligated to any of the people within it. I'm not obligated to the organization itself, and which means the organization is not obligated to me. This is the reality I wanted to create for myself, where I can endlessly share my inspiration and my ideas with an organization, and they can benefit from those ideas, but I can only influence it. I cannot control it. My only influence in that organization is inspiration. It's to share my vision. It's to ignite the hearts and the minds of those people. But for them to interpret what my vision means to them and come up with something even greater than what I could have conceived. I want to be surprised and delighted by what actually comes to fruition from me sharing my perspective and my vision. And for me, that is heaven on earth, where I can just follow my nature endlessly. I receive inspiration. I can share it in an audio. I can share it on a video. I can just share it and then just watch and observe to see what happens. If I'm involved in a collaborative project as the custodian of the vision, I can just plonk inspiration in as and when I receive it and just watch, see what happens, if anything. Because that organization has free will. And when you're free, it means that you're not being controlled. Nothing has control over you, but it also means that you are not seeking to be controlled. And this is a very interesting phenomenon. Lots of people don't realize this, but it's a very common human trait to for people that feel afraid in the world, or they feel insecure or unsafe. A common coping mechanism is to create a sense of obligation in people. And it happens in an unconscious way. But when people feel obliged to us, to look after us, to care for us, to give us money, to give us food, shelter, to support us in any way, that obligation is incredibly powerful. Now, if someone is seeking to create a sense of obligation in another person, they're wanting to be controlled. They're wanting that person to take responsibility for whatever that obligation is so that they don't have to. It's a seeking of an unspoken and unwritten bond that is a sense of energetic control. And in fact, this is why we find ourselves as human beings in the society that we're in today, where we we call it democracy, but in truth, it's a higher authority that has total power over us and our bodies, in fact. And we willingly imbue that authority with the power of our word to make decisions on our behalf. And in return, we get to feel safe. We get to feel secure. We get to feel like we'll be looked after no matter what. And it's a fair trade for most of us. But the alternative is that if we can create a sense of security for ourselves, if we can create an environment around us where there's no sense of obligation from us to us or any of the people around us, that the people around us that are caring for us, the reason they're caring for us is because of a selfish sense of wanting to express care within them, then there's no obligation. There's no obligation. Now, this is an incredibly liberated state of being. And you're getting into the giddy heights here where you realize that, man, I've actually got to entrust. I've got to trust myself enough to know that I'll be cared for no matter what, even though no one's obliged to. That takes a lot of trust. That takes a lot of trust. And I just want to let you off the hook as well. All of us do this. All of us inadvertently give our power away all the time. And many of us are inadvertently trying to get people to control us. We're trying to give people control over us just to create a sense of obligation. And, when we do this, it makes that person feel powerful. And for people that don't feel powerful, if someone is willing to give them control over an aspect of their life, the responsibility for making them feel safe, the responsibility for making them feel secure, for caring for them, for going to the dairy for them, for running errands, whatever it may be, it's a worthy trade-off for them because they get to feel powerful and be in control of something. And this is a classic codependent scenario. And, I've said in another podcast, codependency, it is what it is. It's they're just inauthentic ways of meeting an unmet need. And inauthentic meaning we're seeking an external means to meet an unmet need that we don't believe we're capable of meeting ourselves. And it's just nature. It's just nature. The needs that we have will be met one way or another. And that's our nature. But greed, it is what it is. The desire of the soul is selfish. It's purely selfish. And if you find yourself just wanting to give all the time, wanting to be in servitude to others, I'm not saying that it's not coming from an authentic place, but all you need to ask yourself is, what do I really want in this situation? Am I wanting to feel good about giving to others? Or am I wanting to, or would I prefer someone else to be doing this? Would I prefer someone else to be giving to this person in this way? Just try and understand your motives and just see if you're creating a sense of obligation unwittingly, when in truth, the greed of your soul it would be to express itself in a different way. Okay, so that's it for now for the nature of greed. Talk soon.